guys, God of Lore here. Sorry for the long ass time between videos. I originally wanted to make this whole video in Source Filmmaker, but let's just say that that idea was a bit too ambitious and I wasn't really able to see the whole thing through. In my effort to make things look more professional around here, I wanted to create my own distinct style, but I kind of went beyond what I can actually do, so I decided to bring it all back down to earth and just make the video mostly the same as usual, but with a few SFM made parts though. But since I still want things to look professional, I've decided to have a friend, Spacelad, help me out with the editing a bit for this video, and probably all to come as well. So please give her a warm welcome. I'd also like to thank Dredile for giving me yet another shout out in his most recent video. There is some interesting information concerning Laszlo in today's topic, so let's get right into it. It's been over a year now since Mark Laidlaw gave us Half-Life 2 Episode 3's story, and it has sparked a sort of renaissance in the Half-Life community, what with the tons of different mods being developed, and the other cool stuff of all shapes and sizes coming from all parts of the community. I mention all this because this isn't the first time Laidlaw has released a piece of Half-Life based media, though I don't think enough people noticed it the first time. That's right. I'm going to tell all you citizens and scientists the lost Half-Life tale of Breen Grub. So the year is 2012, and Valve has just made Portal 2. It rises to be one of the best games ever made, has one of the best stories, best gameplay, something a smart company would capitalize on by maybe making a sequel to expand on that gameplay and story that made it great. I mean, they're by no means working on any other extremely popular games that take place in the same universe that is even more famous and for the greater mix of gameplay and story, so they have plenty of time on their hands, except they actually decide to do neither and make CSGO instead, which I guess isn't that bad a decision. It's a pretty fun game too, except it kind of puts Mark Laidlaw out of a job, because nothing's happening that he can do writing for, and it's also frustrating the fans that nothing's happening. So basically, it dawns on Mark that, hey, what if I give some of the story the fans want by writing it onto Twitter? I mean, it's working for this Donald Trump fellow too, though I guess not so well that he'd get elected as president in 4 short years. And thus, Breen Grub was born. Now the thing about Mark Laidlaw is that he really loves Dr. Breen as a character. You see, back in the days of Half-Life 1, the G-Man was actually supposed to be the bureaucratic administrator of Black Mesa, but in writing Half-Life 2, Mark and the boys wanted to change that up a bit, because they wanted the G-Man to be even more of a gaudy cosmic entity moving pawns in his hyperspace tram, so they created the character we all know and love, the Console. And then after more revisions and them wanting the person running City 17 to also happen to be the former Black Mesa administrator, they created Dr. Breen. So even though he was kind of a replacement character meant to fill in the shoes that the G-Man originally had, they did a lot with him, and again, Mark Laidlaw fell in love with this sexy white bearded man, which is all well and good because the voice actor of Breen, Robert Culp, passed away in 2010, so no more Breen. But hey, this Twitter thing is just words being typed on a screen, so this is the perfect medium for Breen to live on. Alright, so enough prologue, let's start reading what these internet hieroglyphics actually say and mean. Now our story begins, presumably not long after Breen got blown up at the end of Half-Life 2. As mentioned shortly before that epic final boss fight, Breen was to be saved to a host body, but since he died, the Combine have decided to load an earlier quick-saved version of Breen into it instead. It is worth noting that this Breen Grub will be seen in Epistle 3, but we'll get back to that later. After regaining consciousness after a somewhat orgasmic seizure, he begins talking about how he needs to tell an unseen group/person information vital to starting a revolution. The simple layman would immediately jump to the conclusion that he's talking about the Resistance or maybe Gordon Freeman. But I think he has a more broader audience in mind. In my Epistle 3 video, I stated that the ending of Episode 3 was an allegory for the reins of Half-Life being given to the community, while Valve leaves the game behind. Similarly, I believe that Breen is more of an aside meant for the ears of the Half-Life community, for them to start this revolution, and all the lore that Breen tells us is vital information as to how Laidlaw intended Half-Life's direction to go, and for us to perhaps see it through ourselves, since Valve's not going to do jack with it. So Breen begins to go into detail about the history of the Cthulhu, something. Basically the Combine advisors. As he tells the story, he keeps getting moved around to different host bodies or has other versions of himself loaded instead. It seems the Combine are trying to shut him up about it, but he ends up telling just about everything anyway. So ladies and mental gen, I shall now tell you the history of the Combine advisors. So a long time ago, on a planet or dimension or something far, far away, no, literally, no one knows where it is. The Combine kind of keep the place a very secret. It's the homeworld of the Sha'ulathoi. You see, this place is basically completely inhospitable, and just a completely shit place to live. Absolutely perfect for a struggling species to evolve over billions of years to become godlike in power, because you'd have to be that powerful to actually survive in this place. Now, I know you're wondering, what do these Cthulhuthoi things look like? What are they like? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we're about to go on a little safari. Oh wait, this is what it's like after everything bad happened. Let's go back in time a few million billion years before these know-it-all Combines fucked it all up. Ah, here we are. Oh wait, fuck, I don't have any models for these. Well, I can just use the regular ones and paint them green. Oh, I'm sorry, Jackathan. Still not good enough for you? You want me to just use regular pictures? Yeah, that looks really gross if you ask me. So anyways, these grubs here that we know as juvenile advisors are basically just the regular old Sha'ulathoi. They are supposed to lay dormant like this because these are actually the larval stage, as implied by juvenile advisors. The adult stage comes later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What do these larvae do on a daily basis? Well, basically nothing. You see, all the activity they do is within their minds. They have a telepathic/telekinetic ability that they use to create a dreamlike hive mind type thing between them all, kinda like the Matrix. But in this dormant state, they don't fly helicopters or do any of that normie shit. They basically just talk philosophy and art to each other. They kinda just keep to themselves and think intelligent thoughts, just like the Half-Life community. Now, on the occasions when the weather outside isn't deadly, the mature ones will mate to create more philosopher slugs. Now I can't show you that. This is family-friendly, PG clean. The mature ones will often just continue to breed like a hentai orgy until they die, but very few, if they have the will, decide to do something much greater and much more interesting. Once mature, they have the ability to use their telekinesis to basically manipulate themselves into whatever form they want, and go their own way. Could this mean the G-Man is actually an advisor? Lambda Generation seems to think so. I mean, it's a better theory than game theory's theory. But then again, neither hold a candle to my G-Man theory, which you should go watch. And I guess I'll make a video about this one too, we'll see. Now life was pretty good for the Sha'ulathoi, until one day, when one of them started having an idea. And then that idea started spreading through the mental matrix to others, and then to more, until everybody was infected by this ideological parasite. What was this idea? It doesn't specify, but whatever it is, it basically caused most of them to die. It sounds like this was an ultra dank meme, like Shaggy or something. So almost all the Sha'ulathoi died from it, and the ones who survived were still infected with it, but just kinda evolved to keep it in the back of their minds, suppressed so it couldn't do any more damage. So they slowly rebuilt, but still had this death meme there inside all of them. This vulnerability would soon be exploited when the Sha'ulathoi were suddenly attacked by none other than the Combine Empire. Oh, you thought the advisors were the ones who started the Combine. Nah, they're just a cog in the military machine. Now, even the Combine wouldn't fare too well against a race of god-powered slugs, unless they found some way to undermine them, which they did. They learned of the concept virus, and like Donald Trump in the election, weaponized the meme to completely disrupt their mental matrix, and the Combine soon got the upper hand and conquered them. Some of the Sha'ulathoi survived and fled, while others were enslaved and incorporated into the Combine's arsenal of synths. The Combine created another sort of suppression field, but this time to keep all the Sha'ulathoi in their larval state that we see them in. Some of them they use in battle, as we see in-game, with their telekinesis being a powerful weapon that they can use against other foes in battle. Others are used as the advisor-type overseer roles we see them in Half-Life 2. But most commonly, they're used as a massive stockpile of host bodies to store intelligences in, such as Breens. The Combine kinda have a thing for preserving, copying, and storing the best minds of the places they conquer, so they store them all within the Sha'ulathoi. And this actually leads us back to Laszlo, who, according to Breen, actually has his consciousness stored in an advisor somewhere. So hey, if someone wants to make a mod about Laszlo coming back to life as an advisor, now you can do it. Dredile. Now, Lambda Gen speculates that this whole Combine storing people's consciousness thing could be evidence that the Combine could be Aperture Science in the far, far future. As the lore god, I know there's strong evidence of this theory, and there may be some weight to it, but I kinda don't like the theory because it's kind of a weird connection, and having those two factions secretly be linked like that kinda makes the universe feel smaller in my opinion. Nonetheless, I want to mention it because I think I could maybe make a video about it in the future. We'll see. So Breen finishes things off when he says that it's possible that some of the Vortigaunts may be secretly allied with the Combine. Afterwards, he lashes out at the Combine, who he's been kind of keeping quiet about, yelling at them, and they respond by messing with his body once more, and he says some more senile things about how wonderful transhumanity is, before saying one last "oh hell" before the Breen Grub Twitter ends. After that, we can assume he was transported to the Arctic, as we see in Epistle 3, where Gordon would meet him, and would do something to quicken his demise. However, if Breen did die of those wounds in Epistle 3, it's more than likely another version of Breen would just be loaded into another Sha'ulathoi. Perhaps that opens up the possibility that Breen, like Laszlo, could appear at another time in the future. We'll see. So now, to conclude what I just read to you, I want to reiterate the point that I think is blatantly obvious with both Breen Grub and Epistle 3. That Laidlaw is practically begging us as a community to take all this lore and run with it. It didn't really happen with Breen Grub, but Epistle 3 was enough of a catalyst to really begin that process. And now we have several projects being worked on within our community right now. However, I think people should really pay attention to all the cool stuff we learned in Breen Grub, like about the nature of the advisors, the Combine, and potentially also the G-Man, as I believe it would be perfect material to work with in the making of new mods. Though Epistle 3 was kind of just continued the narrative as we know it, Breen Grub, I think, expanded the universe a bit, and could be a staging point for other Half-Life mods and games that aim to do the same. So to end things off here, this has been a full explanation of everything Breen Grub says. I hope people take this new lore and run with it, whether to make some new games or stories or whatever. This is kinda how I like to do videos like these, uncovering lore people haven't really seen or heard of, so that by shining a light on them, I'm fueling someone with the inspiration to synthesize this into some more fan-made Half-Life content. I'll see you guys in the next video, where I'll be mining for even more raw content straight from Mark Laidlaw's work, so stay tuned for that. It might be a bit radioactive though, this ore.